Hello everyone, my name is Tom, and recently I made a video about how Book 2 of Avatar is the best, because when you really break it down, it averages out to being the best as far as flow, structure, importance, but does that necessarily mean that it's my favorite? Or does it mean that it should be your favorite? Not really, especially because at the end of the day, I'm just a random stranger on the internet, and what I say should not be treated as gospel by the masses to dictate their personal tastes and preferences. And just because I think Book 2 is the best doesn't necessarily mean it's my favorite. So which one is? My favorite is Book 3, because obviously it's Book 3, because it had the most hype. It had the entire weight of the show behind it, so it didn't even need to try that hard to be great. Book 1 had an uphill battle because they had the most work to do, while Book 3 had the pleasure of getting to pay off what we were waiting for throughout the entire story. It was Christmas, we got so much of what we wanted, maybe not everything, but there was so much that we did and things that we might have not even known that we wanted, that we were too happy to even think about what we didn't get. You telling me Katara and Zuko form an OP water firebending duo? These charming old men just stood up to an army and liberated a massive major city? Aang is on a giant turtle? Oh yeah, and he beat Ozai? Like that's whatever, I guess. My point is, yeah, we had these incredible points in Book 3 that we can all remember, but we also forget how much of Book 3 is just kinda there. Like, we need to acknowledge, there were only moments in Book 3 where it really needed to be that good. Take the Day of Black Sun, for example. It was rewarding to those of us who were following the story. The fact that it was an invasion called for awesome action that had a big fight feel, and utilized the talents and styles of all the friends the team had made along the way. Zuko's speech to Ozai has to be one of the most powerful scenes in television history. It's a massive climactic point for the show, and then you get to the actual finale with Sozin's comment, and they managed to do even better. The fight between Ozai and Aang was everything that the show was meant to do from the first episode. Aang using all four elements to relentlessly humble the man who has gleefully wreaked havoc on the world and boasts about his nation's genocide of Aang's people, and the best part is Aang had to earn that. He had to find it in himself to not only beat Ozai, but he also had to fight and work towards a solution to end Ozai's reign of terror that would maintain his personal values. And everything happening around that felt important and elevated the importance of what Aang was doing as the Avatar while being able to stand on its own. These are the key moments where Book 3 had to deliver, and it absolutely did. And yeah, there were other moments that were important too. Zuko gradually realizing his moral objections to his father's nation, Sokka becoming a swordsman, the story of Sozin and Roku, Zuko joining the team and learning the meaning of firebending with Aang, Mai and Ty Lee turning on Azula, Katara having mercy on the man who killed her mother, Katara learning about bloodbending, which is simultaneously mind-blowing and disturbing. But when you actually sit down and watch Book 3, you start to remember how much of it isn't good. Not bad, because if it was bad, you would probably remember that. But it's also not good. And the reason I say it wasn't that good is it was a lot of time passing for the sake of time passing. Even if we got episodes like The Beach or The Avatar and the Fire Lord, which were enjoyable and valuable to the development of the world and characters, they didn't actually move the story forward. It was more of a, oh yeah, y'all should probably know this, so here you go. It probably helps to see how dysfunctional Azula and Zuko actually are in a typical social situation with people their own age. It provides context, and seeing how Zuko's reintroduction to Fire Nation society has impacted his mental well-being was already inferred, but now we see a deeper exploration of that. It helps to see the story of Sozin and Roku being close, growing up to gradually grow apart as their ideologies differ, as both took on grand positions of influence. It was important to tell the story in order to expand on the world of the lore and the universe. The introduction of bloodbending would be important to showing us that the ideas of good and bad that have been set as a status quo don't always hold up. As the characters mature and grow, they realize that anyone can be capable of great good or great evil, regardless of what nation they come from. Implementing the theme of understanding that just because you perceive yourself as the good side doesn't mean you can let go of your sense of right and wrong, a theme that is consistent throughout this book. But even with all of this serving some purpose and having its own value, it didn't actually contribute to the plot. And these are the episodes that gave us something, compared to episodes like The Painted Lady, that accomplished very little. All the Painted Lady told us is that Katara is a very caring person who puts the needs of others before her own in a way that was honestly kind of selfish, and the fact that she put the rest of the group in a position where they were also sacrificing their time towards her cause without having any say in the matter. It honestly did more to make Katara look naive and immature in the way that she was going out of her way to help strangers without thinking of what consequences her actions would have or who would actually face those consequences. Did we really need that episode when the Puppet Master tells us a lot more about Katara's moral code? Or we have the Southern Raiders, which shows us that she understands that taking the life of the man who killed her mother won't make her feel any better about the fact that that happened. And refusing to do so says more about her strength than her weakness. But she needed to learn that for herself, and along the way to learning that, she did make herself out to be very selfish and immature. But the self-reflection and confrontation of why she was wrong is what makes that isolated story so powerful, which maybe the Painted Lady would have accomplished more if Katara had to confront and take accountability for her actions. But she just gave a speech to the village about how they need to help themselves instead of waiting for someone else to help them, which maybe that has some truth to it, but it also feels very deflective, and absolves the fact that being the Painted Lady was an anonymous activism that put the village in a lot more danger than it put her. Yet the story doesn't hold her accountable for that. And an episode like that doesn't add much of anything to the bigger picture, which is something about Book 2 that I think sets it ahead of the rest of the series. Every episode, even if it wasn't that great, added something to the overarching story. There isn't a single episode in Book 2 that I feel serves the purpose of filling time without contributing something to the greater narrative. In Book 2, episodes consistently moved us towards the next big plot point. Beginning episodes moved us towards Omashu, then they moved us towards meeting Toph, then they moved us towards Ba Sing Se, and then they built up the corruption of Ba Sing Se towards the finale. In Book 3, leading up to the Day of Black Sun, things didn't have a sense of direction. We were moving towards the invasion, but there was no clear sense of how the stories were leading us there. That's something that's only Book 2 does, because Book 1 doesn't do this either. It's a lot of episodes of isolated stories serving to tell us about the world with a very general sense of moving us towards the destination of interest, but with no true sense of direction, which was partly because looking at that era of television, they needed rerunnable episodes that you didn't need to have context for. But then once we got to Book 2, the backlog was there and they could give us clear-cut objectives throughout the entire story, so even when it might have been dragging, we still had a consistent understanding of where we were going next. Then in Book 3, that's gone. Most likely because they realized, oh yeah, we still have more lore and world building that we want to communicate before this story is over, so we better give ourselves time to do that. Not that there was none of that in Book 2, but it was built directly into the story, which maybe they could have done that better in Book 3. For example, in the second half, once they retreated from the invasion, that should have been Aang's training arc. That would have incorporated him and Zuko learning about the origins of firebending, and building on that to help Aang become a powerful bender beyond what we had seen to that point. That would have directly built towards Sozin's Comet. Of course, then there were the issues presented that needed to be resolved by episodes that didn't build towards that. The Southern Raiders was important to Zuko earning Katara's trust and allowing her to forgive him for his past. The Boiling Rock was important to bringing Suki into the main group, breaking Hakoda out of prison, and Azula being cut off from her inner circle. But my question is, were these the best ways to do that? The Southern Raiders is a great isolated story and one of the best episodes of the show, but would it have been possible to make it more relevant to the story? Give it more of a purpose than, yo, we just sitting around waiting for this comet, why not deal with some of my emotional baggage? What would have been better is if there was a motivation to go after this guy that would relate to what is happening in the story. If for some reason going after the Southern Raiders would have aided the process of stopping the Fire Nation's expansion towards world domination, and because of Zuko's intelligence on the matter, and because of Katara's personal ties to the mission, they're the ones who handled the situation, something like that would have made the story mean more in the grand scheme of things, instead of just being a side story. And then the Boiling Rock, did that really need to be a two-part story? Being subjective, this is my least favorite part of Book 3, because it really doesn't need to be there when you start to think about it. And it definitely doesn't need to be this long. And Sokka making it a priority to find his dad follows the same, yo, we ain't really doing anything important, so let's go take care of this thing that's bugging me, type of mindset that only acknowledges how unimportant this point in the story actually is. Because Hakoda was not the only one taken prisoner on the Day of Black Sun, yet he's the only one they can actually break out of the Boiling Rock because he's the only one there. The rest of them got out after Ozai was removed from power, so why was it so urgent to get Hakoda out of there? Especially since he didn't really do anything relevant with his freedom once they got him out. The story isn't actually impacted by this in any substantial way. The only relevant effects are Suki's introduction as a core member of Team Avatar and Azula's isolation, which are destinations with very flexible paths. The only necessity in this situation is Zuko and Mei need to have an interaction where Mei tells Zuko off and voices her frustrations, and Zuko tries to make his intentions understood, leading to Mei turning on Azula and Ty Lee taking that opportunity to do the same, which did not need to happen on the Boiling Rock, and the fact that it did almost undercut that development. Nothing is resolved on screen between Zuko and Mei because they weren't able to have that much focus with everything else that was going on. So even though it's not like Mei saying that her love for Zuko is stronger than her fear of Azula is much of a stretch, it doesn't feel as powerful as it could. Had they given a bit more spotlight to Zuko, trying to make it clear that he had to make a difficult decision, and it wasn't easy leaving Mei behind, but he felt he had to in order to serve the greater good. That could just be me though, since it can be inferred something like that happened off screen, and I know there's always a crowd that says, what, you just want them to just explain everything bluntly? No, I just want to see the seeds at least be planted. At least give me some sense of Mei is still mad, but understands where Zuko is coming from. That gives a bit more justification and meaning to her actions, because all we got was, you're doing this for your country? You're betraying your country. I don't see it that way. And that's it. Then as far as Suki goes, she had consistently popped up in the most random and out of nowhere places, including this, so the sky's really the limit for how they could introduce her into the main group. Then after this was the Ember Island Players episode, which I didn't necessarily care for, but I can also acknowledge that it was relevant leading into the finale. It built on the anxieties Aang was experiencing going into this confrontation with Ozai. It provided the context that a large chunk of the world was anticipating Aang to fail in a devastating way, and it did that while giving a comedic recap on what got us there. So to wrap things up, I think Book 3 has a lot of really great moments and does a lot of good things, and of course it's a great piece of media. But when you really start taking a deeper look at it, it definitely has flaws, it's not as amazing as its best moments, and Book 2 does a better job of telling its story. But like I said, I still like Book 3 the best because of the highs that it hit, and that's fine. Something can be your favorite while still acknowledging it's not the best. That's what makes art so great, is everyone is going to see something different, take something different away, and it's not going to mean the same thing to everyone, and that's not always going to be a result of just quality. That being said, all of Avatar is great, and it's still going crazy on Netflix, so you should definitely consider checking it out. As always, I'd love to hear what you think, so leave a comment down below. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at TommyPQM, or find the Roundtable at RoundtableVids on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it with your friends. Make sure you have subscribed to the Roundtable and hit the bell to never miss a video. My name is Tom, I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. See ya!